Everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. The Homelite 330 and the videos I make about the 330 are some of the most watched. I'd say the Super 2 XLs and the Super XLs are the other most popular, but it's amazing how many people have gone to the 330 videos for repair. So, we're going to tackle a carburetor today. This is a Walbro WT-1. Yeah. WT-1. You had this, and you had a Zama, C1SH3, if I'm remembering correctly. You basically had those two options. So, and I'd say you probably have about a 50-50 on that. Earlier models in the early 80s are more likely to have a Walbro, in my experience. The further along you go, the more likely they are to have a Zama. Whatever. Let's dig in. Okay. So when you first take one off, you're going to end up with this. So we need to take the high-low grommet off. And we need to take out, for our own sanity, the carburetor screws. There is a series of washers and hardware to make this choke plate work properly. Okay? You've got a spring washer, you got the special step washer. At some point they started using this on the other side. This is an early enough example where it's just got a bare screw, but it's very common in later models to see that screw on both sides. But don't lose any part of this. Very hard to find. Okay, let's open up the fuel inlet side first. This also contains the idle screw, so be careful not to drop it. This casting can break, and if you break your idle screw off, well, pun intended, you're screwed. And that screw is almost retained in place by the inlet there, but not quite. It's just really awkward to get it the hell out of your way. So let's go ahead and pop that off. Okay. Would this have run? Yeah, it would have. But, is there evidence of yuck? Yeah, there sure is. So, let's just get that started on its little cleanup adventure right now. We'll let that soak while we're working. So again, this is the fuel inlet. This is your screen right there. I don't know what is on that. I don't want it. That looks pretty clean. To be very honest, I'm not going to replace that. So nothing to see here, folks. That's really that passage appears to be open. We'll find that out when we pressure test for sure. Let's go to the metering side. Okay. Now this can be stuck in place. If you're careful, you can use the atmospheric vent hole. Maybe. I'm going to stab myself in the wrist. That's not working. That's not working at all. Let's see if we can carefully pop it from in. There we go. That's probably a better idea. Alright. Not the stiffest one, but a little crunchy. Little crunchy indeed. We're going to replace it. Okay. We're going to go ahead and pop out our inlet needle and arm. So like always, I'm going to hold that. Get the axle pins already trying. Whoop. I didn't hold that very well. But sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Alright, the pin dropped right out. The needle. I can see daylight through there, looking down through the screen. This is going to be a pretty simple rebuild. Not going to take a whole lot. So I'm going to scrape some gaskets, get things cleaned up, and we will come back for reassembly. Okay. We're ready to roll here. So the proper kit for this style carb is a K10 WT. I am using a Sten's version of that this time around. Whatever. If you can find an OEM Walbro, great. I find the Sten's kits, the Oregon kits, even the CTS kits, pretty good. Pretty good, in fact. CTS, I'm using them more and more right now. I have yet to have a kit from them that disappointed me. And for a overseas company like that, that's actually pretty amazing. Okay. So obviously when you get a multi-kit like that, you're going to have more than what you need. So don't let that concern you too much. Okay. It's part of why we hold on to the old stuff. I'm going to reuse this needle. I see absolutely no indication that crap has dried on it. And that might do it. Oil is going to dissolve a lot quicker than grease. Okay. It's not pretty, but it's there. Get that pin to go back down in place. Alright, so on this one you want it to be basically level with the floor of the carburetor. Where, oh where, there we go. If we look at our Walbro tool, WT is right there. So this is actually sitting a tiny bit low. So I'm going to bring it up just a hair. Anytime you bend it, operate it afterwards. There we go. We're good now. So that the needle isn't artificially jammed into the seat. When you do your first pressure test, you could get a false reading. Alright, let's assemble this other side now. So in your baggie of crap, you're going to get a new axle, a new arm, needle, the fuel inlet screen, a couple Welch plugs. Underneath the high-speed Welch plug, you're going to find a nozzle. That's your high-speed nozzle right there. I need to look at that. That's interesting. It's one that can be driven through the carburetor. There's no reason to pull that apart unless there's a reason to pull that apart. Okay, you know what I mean? If you rebuild the carb and you're certain there's still a carb issue, that's when you get into there. So often you just don't need to. So let's see. Now this this was only using one set of gaskets, but I'm not totally convinced that's correct. In fact, I'm rather certain that it's not correct. We should have been using this with it. So we're going to put it together the right way. So, main diaphragm down first, gasket, and then auxiliary diaphragm. What that's doing is forming the proper fuel passage. And we'll see if I need to put it onto this first. You need to open your throttle a little bit to get your like I say, this may not be the best day for me to be working on carburetors because it seems to be one of those that's not going so well. So we'll try assembling it to the cover first and see if maybe it's less irritating that way. And it would actually help if I had the right gasket. Those are shaped the same, but the hole spacing is just slightly off. That's interesting. Again, that's the risk of having a very generic universal gasket like this, and this may be the same way. There we go. Now we'll see if we can do that. So the point, you got to open the throttle enough that it's not hitting the idle screw there, which is not as easy as it looks or sounds. There we go. Dropped in. So you can look around and make sure that nothing looks out of place. No wrinkles, anything like that. So again, a K8 or K10 WAT is going to service WA and WT carburetors. That's why there's some extra crap. That extra crap is going to go in the trash can right now so that I don't continue getting it mixed up. Including that. Alright, let's throw some pressure to this and find out, before we get any further, if there are going to be any issues. And don't mix up your impulse and your fuel inlet hoses. Impulse is going to be on the cover itself back here. Cover back here. Fuel inlet's going to be the barb on the side. Okay, so there is some leakage there. Way more leakage than I want to see. So where is it coming from? Could it be that I didn't have the hose on well? That would be amusing, but not amusing. Well, it would appear that could be exactly what it was, is I didn't have the hose on well. Look at that. If I can get this in frame. That is just shy of, that's about 7.5 psi. I'm going to release a little. Yep. So we know we don't have a false tightness on our, that's 10 psi there. We don't have a false tightness on our needle. Alright, which one of these gaskets is going to be the appropriate one? Looks like that one. And that one. And then our cover. Alright, now I already can tell we're going to be alright because I'm putting my thumb pressure on the cover and it hasn't released. Okay. Never hardly moved. That's what we want to see. So then, last step, remember how it sits in there and get your, get your grommet back in place. Again, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to line it up as you're dropping the carb down. That's just the nature of the beast, but something about like that. Get your choke linkage and that, and there you go. Certainly not the smoothest carb rebuild I've ever done. Again, this may not be my day. If I get into the next project and it goes like this, I'm out. Who knows? Maybe I need another cup of coffee. That always helps steady the hands, right? Hope this was of some help. WT-1 is an easy, relatively speaking, easy carb to service. Get the right kit, follow the instructions, use the IPL, okay? This was assembled wrong. It did not have that auxiliary diaphragm on the fuel pump side to form the fuel channel the way it's supposed to be. The IPL from Homelite clearly shows that, as do the ones from Walbro. So, if at all possible, take a peek at those before you dig in so that you kind of know what you should find. Because the last person that was in there, there's no guarantee that they did it right. In fact, there's probably a higher than normal likelihood that they didn't, because if they did it 25 years ago, before all this material was widely available on the web, they didn't have a lot to work with. Hope this helps. Catch you guys in the next one.